Hello, and welcome to Let's Get Writing. This is the show where we have author reads. And today, Susan, hi. We just got
Hello
off of
again.
the regular show, and here we are back to hear from you about your book. And I love this. It was only a few weeks ago that I thought about I should be having my guests read from their books to offer more to our viewers and to get a sense of what you're writing. We talk all about your writing journey, but let's hear some of the writing. So I'm so excited.
And this is great because with the latest circuit breaker, my book launch didn't go ahead. So I didn't get a chance to read. So here I am.
Yeah.
Things happen for a reason.
Oh, well, it is. And I actually have a signed copy. I've got one of those copies that you must have signed at Flanker Press.
I signed so many, I got low blood sugar at one point, and I think my signatures are really funny.
Let's check that out. I think it is I think you signed a lot. Check out this signature. There we go. You're looking like, the way my husband signs something.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I wanted to
in
read
what
to
you're gonna do.
you a section. It's chapter 31, Henry and the Walmart Wind. And this chapter was inspired because my son and daughter drove in my son's car up to Walmart on Stavanger Drive, and the wind was so severe, a shopping cart came and ripped off the side mirror of his car. And that's where the inspiration for this chapter came from. But this is the first time that Henry Puddester, the protagonist, meets Dolores, who is the woman who has just traveled across the country in her Ford LTD covered in 4,000 pieces of junk.
Oh my gosh.
So here it is.
Here it is.
Ready?
Just one point. If somebody's not from Newfoundland, they might say, oh, come on, a wind could not do that. Yes. A wind, especially in St. John's, could do that.
Right now in St. John's, my house is shaking as I do this interview. The beams are moving. And yesterday morning was really severe. So Walmart on Stavanger is considerably higher elevation than where I am. So yes, it would do that. Okay. So you ready now?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So Henry and the Walmart Wind. Henry pulled the Ford Escape into the Walmart lot just in time to see an errant shopping cart take out a middle-aged woman with a head of cropped blue hair. The cart was careening across the parking lot, heading east, when it took a turn to the south, and bam, down she went. Henry pulled into the nearest space. Bloody hell, did you see that? Frank jumped out of the SUV and ran to where the shape lay prone on the asphalt, the cart on its side next to her, and the contents of her purple purse strewn around her like an art installation. Anything lighter than a pound, taking flight towards Robin Hood Bay. Henry jumped out and forced the door shut against the wind. Christ almighty, that's her, Frank screamed over the howling dust. That's Dolores, the station wagon lady. I recognize the pence. But not the hair? Henry's eyes traveled the length of the motionless figure, moving down from the blue hair and red lipstick to the pink jacket and floral pants, which he had to admit were indeed memorable. No movement came from the lump, despite the wind gusts lifting the ends of the jacket and floral pant legs, as well as some strands of aqua hair. She's out cold, said Frank, looking around as if hoping a doctor would materialize through the automatic doors in the distance. Check her pulse, would you? She's your friend, you check. She's not my friend, but she is the only person alive able to identify the meter thief. So why don't you feel it? I'm scared. Henry rolled his eyes, squirted on some hand sanitizer, and took the woman's wrist in his. Pulse is fine. His eyes roaming the parking lot for the LTD. There was a group of people standing around something in the far corner of the lot. Maybe that was the mysterious station wagon. I'm calling 911. Frank pulled out his phone. Henry surveyed the contents of the purse that had not yet taken flight. A large plastic bottle of Gorilla Glue lay on the ground near a box of Flakies. Frank started to key in the numbers. Wait, Frank, looks like she's coming around. The woman opened her eyes, but she did not seem to register Henry at her side. Frank crouched beside Henry and nudged him out of the way. Dolores, it's me, Frank from City Hall, remember? The woman turned her head ever so slightly to bring Frank into focus. She blinked. See no evil. She closed her eyes. Yes, we know all about the monkey. See no evil, she repeated, eyes still shut. Don't worry, Dolores. We're going to call an ambulance. At the word ambulance, it was like a lightning bolt passed through Dolores's body. Her eyes flew open. She shrieked, "No ambulance!" Okay. Henry rubbed his thumb and forefinger up and down along the scruff of his chin. What now? We'll bring her to the hospital ourselves. I came here to see a souped up station wagon, not play good Samaritan to some nut bar. She's not a nut bar. Well, maybe she is, but we can't just leave her here. I've got enough on my plate between Millie and Dash and bloody babies left in shopping carts. I'm going home to watch the game. Come on, Henry. It won't take any time. We'll still catch the game. And I have 8 tins of scrummy Guinness. Henry raised one eyebrow. It wasn't like Frank to buy Guinness. I don't know what scrummy means, but if you have Guinness. Yes, I do occasionally stock beer brewed by someone other than myself, although I'm sure it's far inferior to my latest batch. Is it cold? Ice. Okay, I'll pick up her stuff. Frank stood up to disperse the small crowd that had migrated from the station wagon to the accident scene. Show's over, everyone. They grumbled but moved on. He bent down to grab the flakies and a hairbrush before they blew away, while Henry wrestled the catch-all from the lady's arm and opened it wider to put in the Gorilla Glue. It looked like maple syrup. He motioned to Frank to drop the other things inside. The last thing Frank picked up was a Mickey Mouse key ring with at least 20 keys on it. He pitched them in the bag and Henry swung it over his shoulder. Looks good on you, Frank laughed, that thundering laugh of his. Henry did not laugh. He threw the bag in the escape and drove as close as he could to the woman so they could load her inside. She's no lightweight. Frank wrestled the woman into a sitting position before taking her under her arms. Henry took her legs, and together they heave-hoed her into the back seat in much the same way Henry had loaded a 40-pound bag of sushi rice a few days before. Henry stretched to strap on her seatbelt and placed her purse in the seat next to her lifeless form. So that is how Henry met Dolores. So I was going to go on and read a second section. I can continue with what happens immediately after Henry meets Dolores for a little bit. Would you like that? And then I'll go to the other section.
Absolutely. I'm enjoying it. I've read it once, but it's even nicer to hear you read it. So,
the next chapter is linear, and it's chapter 32, Henry at the hospital with Dolores. So I'll read just a page and a half of that, and then I'll go to a different section.
Sounds good.
Henry did not see the hockey game. He did not get to enjoy a cold Guinness. He did not even really get to see the Ford LTD. What he did was call his incredulous wife from the emergency department of the Health Sciences Center to tell her he was waiting for a dowdy, blue-haired, floral-clad lady to be seen by a doctor after he and Frank witnessed her getting clobbered by a Walmart cart. We were supposed to go over your defense, and then Dash was waiting for you to watch the game. Millie's voice came through the phone like a chainsaw. Henry could tell she still wasn't over the fact that Dash had caught fire. I know, but we couldn't just leave her there. But who is she? When Millie was irritated, there was no disguising it in her tone. I don't know. Some lady Frank knows. Henry, what is the woman's name? Henry looked up to the left. Dolores, I think. A bit of a nut bar, really. She covered an old wood panel station wagon with plastic toys and drove it across the country. Ooh, said Millie, her tone suddenly changing. That Dolores. I saw her on the National a little while ago. She was in Quebec. I had no idea she had made it here already. How does Frank know her? He met her yesterday. She went to City Hall to complain about damage to her car. You mean Daisy? Is that the car's name? Yes, we watched a story about her last Saturday night, remember? No. What happened to Daisy? Well, first she hit a moose. Oh, no. A gasp came out of Millie. Is Dolores all right? Not since she was run over by a shopping cart. It was no surprise to Henry that his wife would be into the retro station wagon. She always loved funky cars, but he was surprised by her interest in the crackpot woman driving it. Okay, back up a bit. I don't understand what she was doing at City Hall, Henry. Henry was experiencing information overload. A thief was ripping the head off a parking meter and ended up damaging the station wagon too. Ooh, the plot thickens. So when she went down to the bunker, they called Frank, ipso facto. Then Frank insisted we had to bring her to the hospital, so here we are. At least I am. Not sure where Frank disappeared to. A stretcher pushed by a short male porter with a mohawk trundled by. Okay, keep me posted. I'd love to meet her sometime and see Daisy. Got Gotta go, Millie. They're calling her name. So that's Henry's introduction to Dolores. And now we are going to move on to chapter 34. And this is Henry's practice session with Gloria. So Henry's wife, Millie, is a defense lawyer. And in their firm, Millie works with Gloria, another defense lawyer. And she has agreed to represent Henry in his court case. He's been accused with kidnapping for taking an infant child from a supermarket to his home.
Mm.
That was Gloria. Millie laid her sleek, pink-rimmed iPhone on the table in front of her plate. Sometimes Henry hated that phone. It was like an interloper with whom he had to compete. He hated the way the ringtone interrupted their lives with its steam train whistle bearing down on the kitchen. She was worried they might charge you with child endangerment, but says they're leaving it at kidnapping. Millie paused, taking a bite of her toast. Ever since Henry had met Millie back in university, she had always started her day with dry toast dunked in black tea. Good Lord, Henry stood up. I know it sounds bad, but you'll be all right. Gloria will make sure you're prepared. When's the hearing? This coming Monday. Oh, that's not going to work. I'm going golfing with Frank on Monday, he said, leaning against the counter. I would advise finding a designate. But it's the Big Brother's indoor tournament. Henry thought of his old office buddies. At this moment, they were down south, golfing in 30-degree temperatures, their grown children independent and out of the picture. Henry was stuck in a place that had no spring, and his life had gone so far off the rails that he couldn't even manage to get away for one morning to play golf indoors. Go golfing if you like, said Millie, brushing crumbs off the table and onto her plate. I'll arrange for a tour of the penitentiary if you like. Henry loved his wife, but right now he wished she would disappear. She would normally be at work, but today she was going in late so she could be here to work on defense strategy with Gloria. Henry couldn't help but feel nostalgic about his years at the office, where all he had to worry about were lazy employees and marketing campaigns. He tried to look at the bright side. Answering questions for Gloria would be better than answering questions for Millie. Millie was one of the most intimidating people he had ever met. All the same, he wouldn't want to come up against either Millie or Gloria in court. Vultures were less menacing than those two. Dash ran in and dumped his backpack in the porch. Going out to play manhunt with Stella. Henry hoped Dick hadn't mentioned anything to Stella about the supermarket incident. It was awkward enough when Akela brought it up at Cub Camp. Dash was gone less than a minute when Gloria arrived in a cloud of perfume. She came in the dining room and ear-kissed Millie, then Henry. You smell like Frank when he's vaping. Frank smokes Giorgio Armani Acqua di Gioia? No, cotton candy. Love you too, Henry. Gloria was a Latino clone of Millie, with Honduran appearance. She was a bit taller, curvier, and always wore outlandish glasses and austere jewelry, where Millie was more subtle. But for all intents and purposes, they were the same. He knew that people at the office called them Tweedle Smart and Tweedle Smarter. Today, Gloria wore glasses with opaque white frames, lenses as large and round as coasters. She pulled off her 5-inch heels and threw them back toward the front door, where they bounced off the hardwood. This will take some time, a few sessions at least, so let's get right to it. First, we'll outline what happened, and then I'll ask you about the Dilaudid. Gloria took a folder out of her leather laptop bag and flipped it open. Oh, one thing, said Millie. I'm telling you this not as a lawyer, but as your wife. Just try to avoid using the word baby. Millie did that ear quote thing with her fingers. Do you want me to say child instead? Henry paced around the table. No. Henry jumped. Geez, Louise, why not? Sit down and I'll explain, said Millie. Henry sat down on the chair farthest from Gloria. Between her funky glasses and frozen forehead, Henry had a bit of trouble concentrating. I figure that you might arouse more sympathy if we avoid talking about the child, said Millie. Henry raised his eyebrows. In the same way, if Gloria asks you if you recognize the young woman seated in the courtroom, she will probably not say the mother. Okay. When you first saw the carrier, you didn't know there was a baby in there, did you? Millie touched his shoulders. Not right away, but I peeked in and saw it. He could still see the little pink-clad human. When he gave her the pacifier, she looked like Maggie in The Simpsons. Where was this? Asked Gloria. At the cache. Henry tried to focus on anything but Gloria's forehead. I plugged in the pacifier. Are you sure? Gloria's eyes locked onto Henry's with an intense focus.
That's it.
So that's it.
You had me. Oh my goodness. It's interesting because when someone's reading to you, it's almost like it's very enjoyable. It almost takes you back to childhood and the whole process of being read to. And it was like, oh, what's going to happen? And you stopped.
I know if I have trouble going to sleep, I can listen to an audiobook and it just knocks me out.
Yeah. And audiobooks are great, something that a lot of us have to get into, I'm sure, in our journeys. I have not interviewed anyone yet who actually has done the audio version of their book. And something that I've got to get a little more information on and learn about myself.
Andy Jones is really, really good. When I read his books,
Yeah.
I don't have near the pleasure I do than when I listen to him reading them. So if you ever get him or Marnie Parsons on from Running the Goat, you'll get to hear Andy read.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll have to check out one of his books because I find if I'm walking or doing different things, love to be listening to a book. And,
Yeah.
if you can't read it, you can listen to it. It's great. Well, I just want
And
sorry.
oh, one other thing, a friend just told me that they gifted not an audio book of Supermarket Baby because that doesn't exist yet, but the ebook, they were able to gift it to friends. So that's a nice advancement too. When you're far away from someone, you can gift an ebook.
Absolutely. And it is nice to hold a book in your hands, but there's many times when an ebook is very practical if you're traveling, which we're not doing right now,
Yeah.
and as much, but and just the convenience of it. It's on your phone. You're just read anywhere that you might just be hanging out for
Yeah.
15 minutes. Yeah. And so hopefully we've intrigued people. I have to say, when I read the book, I was so disturbed at Doris and her glue and the bike. I'm just saying, I
And I
can't
was
say anymore. But
I was really sympathetic to Dolores as I wrote her, and I really liked her. But Ed Rich read the book. I love Ed Rich's writing. Um, and he said when he read the scene where Henry comes upon Dolores in the shed with the Gorilla Glue, he
yeah,
said, I didn't like Dolores until that scene, and now I hate her.
I
He's
gotta
also a motorcycle
do.
enthusiast, so
I was just, there is no way you can put any spin on this that makes it right. There's just nothing.
so
Dolores.
that motorcycle is out in the shed. I'm looking at the shed now, and when I do get around to having a book launch, the 1970 Triumph Bonneville will be there.
Oh, you're not going to glue anything on it, are you?
No, that would be real fast divorce.
There you go. Well, that's how
Yeah,
I felt when I read it. I just thought, oh, Doris, there's just no redemption for you now. You have crossed the line. It was hard on
yeah.
Henry.
But Henry, he's a flawed individual, and he has a lot to learn in the course of the novel. But by the end, he is more accepting of other people's flaws and realizes that the life he has is not half bad.
No, nice story arc.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we've intrigued you. If you have been listening to want to get the book and read more, and unfortunately, Susan's not going to be available to read it to you. You have to do that part yourself. But we've been able to.
Who knows? Maybe in the future, I am looking into it. Before we clue up, I would love to tell your listeners a little bit about the events that the Writers Alliance has on this month alone. Can I tell you a little bit?
Absolutely.
Well, in March, we have 10 events, and I'll just give you like 3 or 4 of them. We have Getting Started with Indie Publishing with author Scott Bartlett. He also won the Percy Jane's First Novel Award, and his novel that he won for is also set in a supermarket, and it's called Taking Stock, and I really laughed when I read it. We have youth workshops, and we have a series of youth readings coming up called Writing in the Time of COVID, and that sounds negative, but it's meant to be, how did you inspire yourself this past year when you were more or less isolated and not getting out to writing groups, and what did you do to bring light to your writing? We have an Ask Me Anything with Trudy Morgan Cole on March 16th. On March 16th in the evening, we have Understanding the Publishing Path workshop with Kenneth and Jackie Tam. They're very accomplished writers. On March the 20th, we have Writing Commercially Successful Fiction, and that's a 4-hour masterclass with journalist Robert Sawyer. So you can see a lot on the go for March for the Writers Alliance, and there are at least 5 others that I haven't mentioned. So join the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador. You won't be disappointed. One-stop shop for writers in this province.
Well, I certainly loved what you were talking about there. Some of those programs would be absolutely excellent to do. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your work on the board, because I know it has been a lot on top of everything else you're doing, and you have well, not so many kids at home right now, but you still have
No, just 2. I have 4 children now, and they're 20s, so they're all adults. And then I have a 13-year-old who is below me in the bowels of the basement, just finishing up school. Another 5 minutes. Yeah.
There you go. Well, thanks so much, Susan, for taking time to join me on Let's Get Writing. Much appreciated. I know we're going to stay in touch, and it's been a pleasure.
Yes, I really enjoyed meeting you, Kathryn, and I'd love to discuss more. Maybe we'll get to work on some things together someday.
Maybe so. And we're going to, don't quite run away. I'm going to infringe on your time a little more. We're going to hop over to Instagram. We're doing the whole social media circuit today.
All right. So I'm going to shut down this program and go to my phone.
Yes, I'll see you
Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.